Thank you. So, welcome everybody. As Q said, my name's Alex Evans. I'm from BrainStorm, and this session's 10 things that you should not be without in GroupWise. The client that we're looking at here is GroupWise 2012, but the things I'll be showing you are not necessarily limited to that version. You can also see these things in GroupWise 8 and or previous versions as well. Just to set up kind of why we're talking about this, really is you want to look at how you drive productivity within an organization. You really want to get users beyond the basic functionality. So if they're still using their email in the same old way that they were using it 10 years ago, basically just for email and basic calendaring, they're missing a lot of functionality, and they're not necessarily helping themselves be more productive or really driving productivity within the organization. And there's a lot of features within GroupWise that really help users really assist users in getting their daily work done more efficiently and more effectively. So hopefully as I go through some of these things in the next 40 minutes or so, I'll encourage or convince you guys to use some of those things, and in turn you'll convince your user population to adopt some of these things as well, really helping again drive user productivity and organizational effectiveness. If there are questions, Q, I think they'll be able to type them into the instant messaging window. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. If there's any questions, they can put those through via the chat. So at the top of the session, there's just a little toolbar, just so everyone is aware. If you put something through on the chat or the Q&A, we'll be able to see that, and we'll go through the questions that way.
And maybe, Q, if you could watch that, because I can't see it, obviously.
Yep.
Just let me know when there are questions, and I'll try and address them.
I will.
Great, thank you. So I'll get started with the home view. We may not have enough time to get through all of these things, so I'm going to go through a list I put together and see how far we get. But essentially starting with the home view, and I'll touch on this as we come back through a number of the other pieces I'm going to talk about. So if you haven't used the home view before, it's available right here on the home tab, or sorry, the home folder, as it were. And it's basically a dashboard of content, and that content can exist either inside your mailbox or externally. And so I'll talk through some of these and then come back to them again as I do more of the other sections of this presentation. But again, the home view, fully customizable. The default view has got 3 panels, but you can have a lot more. And as you see here, I've got 6 panels plus my folder tree. And actually, as I work with it, I turn off my folder tree because I don't need to access it that often. And if I need it, if I need to file something, for example, I can just grab it and drag it over, and the folder tree pops out. But so to turn off folder tree, it's up here on the upper right, this icon. So you can toggle it on, toggle it off. You can also access it here under this menu. So the folder tree is still there. We're just hiding it to get more real estate, because I find that the content within the panels is much more useful than the content of my folder tree. You can see here that I have various different panels. So this here is sent items, this one in the upper right. So if I double-click the title, it maximizes within the GroupWise window. Double-click it again to restore it to where it was. This is my mailbox, a task list, some unread items, which searches my entire mailbox. Any folder within my mailbox it will search, and a calendar. So this really puts everything that I need to get my job done during the day right in front of me. What it cuts down on is that need to keep switching folders. So for example, if you maybe look at how you work today, if you do a lot of calendaring, either you probably have got Notify on or your phone to remind you when a meeting's coming up, or you switch to your calendar every now and again just to see what meetings you've got in the not too distant future, just so you can be prepared. The way that I work is that I have this summary calendar here rather than the graphical day view. I have this summary calendar which shows me here the next 2 weeks of my calendar appointments, and it's always in front of my face, and I'm always prepared for the next meeting that's coming, simply because it's right there. I'm not browsing for it. It's only a glance away. and my first notification of an upcoming meeting is not notified 15 minutes or 5 minutes before the meeting, or my phone buzzing 5 minutes before the meeting. So I find myself being much more prepared as I go into a meeting. You know, for example, I can see right here out till Friday what I've got coming. So that's just one tip. If you want to customize your home view, it's fully customizable. So you can simply drag an existing panel to move it, for example, or here under these carrots that are in all of the upper right-hand corners of all the panels, you can select Customize Panels. And this is where you can define new panels, or you can move things around. So here we can move this up. We'll put that in that list. We'll move this task list down. So that just moves things around for us. Which takes me to the next point, the next thing I want to cover, which is tasks. So if you look at how most people are probably using GroupWise today, or any email client, it's essentially this view. Let me just turn that off as well. Folders on the left, content on the right. Maybe they have Quick View on, so we'll turn that on as well. Right, so maybe they have Quick View on as well. And I'll move that over to the right-hand side, just to make use of the full real estate that we've got. And this is probably the default view for many, many users. And I'll scroll down just to hide the task list. And that's great, but the thing that that's doing is essentially, that's everybody else's priority list in the order that it came into your mailbox. And that doesn't necessarily help you understand what you have to do and in what priority order they exist. And that's where the task list plays a big, big role. So if you haven't used the task list, it's over here in the folder tree. You'll see this here, task list folder. And I move over there. And that's great. And it's very, very handy. It's easy to get things into the task list simply by dragging and dropping. So here I'm grabbing an email, and I'm going to drop it into the task list. That creates a new task in the task list. But if you go back to my home view conversation, right, it's still putting content in another place that I need to look. So that's why the home view becomes more useful. We put the task list next to our incoming stream of content, which is our inbox. So here, that content, I don't know which one I just copied. One of these, probably this one, which I just copied over. What's also nice about this in the task list is I can create dependencies between items. So here I grab it and just move it up. And you can see that the arrow changed from being in that kind of left-hand separator to being kind of underneath this other item. It's just by moving up slightly. And so now I've created a subtask of that item, and I can go ahead and do maybe another one. And I just created that by just typing call Bob. So I can highlight something and start typing. We'll create a new item. And now I'm creating subtasks of the task. And this really gives you the idea of the subtasks within a project. And so that helps me manage stuff as it's coming in, turning it into my list of things to do, creating kind of dependencies between content or between items so that I can do them in the right order, essentially. And as I work with GroupWise, I kind of try to get my inbox to have as few items as possible. I kind of triage them as they come in, whether I'm triaging them on my phone or in my mailbox. Either way works. But my goal is to either complete them fairly much immediately or pretty much immediately, or turn them into a task, and then prioritize them from there. So here I will often create a category for this one's urgent, this one is gets it done by the end of the week. So I can see kind of what my priorities are on each of these tasks. And of course I can also order them within this list to create priorities. So I can move this up to the top, for example. That's my highest priority item now, just simply from the order that I created it in. And again, within the home view context, same task list, but it's embedded within there. I'm going to turn off Quick Viewer, which is not that one. Just get myself some more real estate here. So typically how I work is actually My task list is my largest panel. We'll move this to the center because that's typically where I place it. Not there. And now I've broken it. Create 3 columns. Task list is going down. So this is typically how I work, with a task list being the biggest panel within my home view, because that's really the thing that's driving my productivity. And that really changes us, in a sense, from being what a lot of us are, which is email answerers, into somebody that's hopefully a little bit more productive and strategic about what I'm doing within the organization. Because too many of us spend too much of our time simply answering email. That's not necessarily what we're employed to do, although it's a big part of how we manage today we manage our daily life. One of the next things I want to talk about is editing content within the mailbox. And so let me just click on New Mail, see what we get. So here we've got a new email, and we're used to this. We've got HTML, and you'll see kind of content trending towards HTML within the organization. Love it or hate it, it just seems to be the fact of the way things are going. One of the benefits, of course, of HTML content is it gives us a lot of different ways to display our email. You know, one of the biggest problems of email is it's hard to convey meaning or context, and so additional editing options help us kind of manage that a little bit. So GroupWise has got rich text editing functionality, which is nice, but one of the things I like to do is use Word or OpenOffice as my editor, and that gives me some additional formatting options. And for me, actually, one of the major benefits is I also get the proofing options, or the proofing capabilities of Word or OpenOffice embedded within GroupWise. So here I went to Tools, Options, Environment, and then clicked on Editors and Viewers. And I'm going to change my default editor to Microsoft Word. So I have Word installed on this machine. It will take a little second to just initialize for the first time. So here you'll see Word is embedded within the window. I'm actually not seeing everything I should be seeing. Let me log out and log in again. And we'll do that one more time. There we go. So I'm a little bit real estate challenged right now, so I guess I just have to drag that bar down a little bit. But hopefully you can see this. So here I'm seeing the toolbars from Word embedded within the message, and all of the normal options, editing options are here. I can type heading, make it a heading 1. I get those formatting options. The other nice thing, of course, is that as I make typos like te, it auto-corrects, auto-capitalizes, all of those things. So all of those, and the thesaurus, the dictionary, all of those things are all embedded here within the Compose window. So it gives me a lot more editing options, a lot more capabilities around formatting that content, as I mentioned. The next thing I have on the list is publishing my busy search information. See, if you've ever had to work with external entities, and typically almost everybody within an organization in one way or another has to work with external entities nowadays, I think I've just crashed it, then publishing or setting up meetings is kind of challenging. So one of the ways to facilitate that within GroupWise 8 and beyond is the ability to publish free busy information. So if you haven't done that already, you need the calendar publishing host. And once you've done that, once you've set that up, users are able to come in and publish their free busy information, which is under Tools. think I have the world's slowest laptop here that I'm presenting on. So it's Tools, Options, Calendar, and then on Busy Search here, you'll see this Publish My Free Busy information, and then the ability to send that to somebody else. I'm just going to grab this URL. It's not going to work straight away because it's an internal URL. So I'm going to try it here. I'm not sure we've opened our firewall. So we didn't open our firewall. So I'm actually not at BrainStorm today, which is why that's not working. But that URL, so those two URLs actually, because I showed you two things there. One of them will give you an HTML representation of your calendar. So that allows things like the ability to publish my calendar. So I'm right-clicking here and I select Publish. That allows me to publish it to the web. That's an HTML representation. But the other thing that I showed you was the free busy search, which means you don't have to publish your calendar, but it just allows people external to the organization to busy search you from their client. So for example, you're interacting with somebody that has Outlook. You can send them that free busy URL. So you can send them this free busy URL right here. And they'll take that, put it on your contact card, and then when they busy search you, it will return the right busy search information. And the opposite is also true. They can send you their free busy URL. You can put it on their contact card, and you can busy search them. Hey, Q, any questions so far?
Let's see. Give me just one moment here. It looks like we do have some. We did have one that came through that said, can you exclude a folder from the unread items?
You can. Yes, I'll show you how to do that if I can stop crashing the client. We're still using an old beta here on this laptop. But yes, you can exclude a folder from the unread items. So let me go and do that right now. So here, so it's just, unread items is essentially a query. So if we go here and edit this, and then I need to go find it myself here on filter. So this is essentially where it's getting it from. So find items where item status does not include read. We should be able to, well, let me find it, hang on. Oh, you know what? I see what it's doing. So yes, let's set that up really quickly. So I'm going to create a new search. We're going to do the same search, except in here we're going to exclude some items. So I'll exclude my calendar. I'll exclude this French stuff because I don't speak French, and then go from there. And then we want to do on the advanced find item status does not include read. This will execute the search, and again I've excluded some folders. And then on this menu right here, I can save this as a folder. So this is the search results window, and I can save that query as a folder. Unread items in entire mailbox. Very long folder name. And then as long as you select this, it will redo the query every time that folder refreshes. So I probably should have deselected documents as well. But anyway, and now I can create a new panel. We'll do this here. New panel, unread, really. We change the folder to be that massive folder name I just created. OK, add, delete. And so now this is doing the search across my entire mailbox and excluding those folders. Was there any other questions, Q?
There's one other one. It says, is it possible to share folder settings with others?
It is possible to share folder settings. Well, I'll take that back. It's possible to share the home view settings with others. Let me see if it's possible to share this with others. Yes. So if you select a folder and then right-click in white space, you've got this Save Display Settings. Send Display Settings. And it basically wraps it up in this attachment. And you can send that to somebody else. So they can import it and then use that display setting on their folder to display the content or display the folder as you have. So you can do that with the home view. So if you set up a home view just like you want it to be set up, you can right-click in some white space and select Send Display Settings. What it doesn't do is if you have things like custom folders where you're filing items, it won't create those custom folders in their mailbox. So it's really great for the basic settings. More complex stuff, they'll lose a couple of those things, if that makes sense.
Perfect. And that looks like all the questions for right now.
Great. So next thing on my list, I'm down to number 5 right now. So next thing on my list is teaming integrations. And I saw that actually Tracy Smith at Novell is coming on right after me, so I hope I'm not going to steal his thunder if any of you are attending that session. And I guess I should call them Vibe integrations now. But if you're not using Novell Vibe, I guarantee you will find uses for it if you do roll it out. Those of you that are, I'm hoping that you're getting a lot of value from it. But essentially, Novell Vibe, its real value proposition is around creating organizational knowledge, right? So if you have people leaving the organization, they often take everything that they've learned with them, including everything that they're involved in, all the projects, all the knowledge they had around a project goes. And email is great for short-term interactions, but it's not necessarily the place where you want to be storing things for a long time. Maybe you have quotas, or maybe you don't, but email is really not the place for that necessarily because it's your repository. And teaming allows you to share that repository. Vibe, sorry, I'm going to keep calling it teaming, but Novell Vibe allows you to share that repository and allow the entire organization or whoever you want to share it with able to make use of that content that you're sharing. So here I've enabled the Novell Vibe integrations. It's just using the Novell Vibe sandbox, and not everything is available here. But you can see I'm able to browse through the content in my folder tree. So if I click on something here, it will go out and grab the web content and display it. So I don't have anything posted. I don't have any files right now. As we browse through this, I don't have any photos, and so I'll just post a little bit of content. Not everything's going to work, but some of the things that really help you drive some of that organizational knowledge, like I mentioned, was the ability to drag and drop content. Because I'm using that demo version, I can't drag an entire email. But if you're using the regular version, you can drag an email from your mailbox and post it to a folder. I'm just posting it here to my personal folder because I'm not a member of any teams. And you should see then that it gets posted to my blog. It won't be in this case, just because of limitations of that demo version. But a regular version will. Which is great, but also we don't necessarily always want to drag the entire email. Sometimes we do if we have a project and we want to, keep information or keep all emails around a project with the rest of the project content. We can certainly just drag content in or drag emails in. Sometimes we just want the attachments. It's the attachments that are really what's important to us. And emails become the de facto place for sharing files, not the most effective. And so one way to get files into the place where we do team collaboration is to drag them from my email. And I should not have double-clicked it. Bear with me, folks. Here we go. So if I grab it and just post it here, it saves it into Novell Vibe. All being well. So there you go. That's the file I just copied over. And similarly, I can grab, for example, contacts. If I come to my contact list, see if there's anything in the sales team. No, Autumn has. So let's grab Bob Sled. I'm going to drag him into my blog. And that will actually wrap up that contact as a V card and post it into Vibe. So now, in the context of maybe it's a customer and you're trying to build up maybe a customer project site, you can drag all of the contacts from that customer in there. It's available to the entire team fairly easily. A couple of other things that you can do is search. So if you know that you've collaborated around something, not necessarily know where it is, or again you're researching something that you need to get done. You filed something in your task list like I told you to do, and now you're researching it. You can search group-wise and Vibe simultaneously. So you'll see here that I have here 2 search targets selected. So I've got my own mailbox, but I also have Vibe selected. And so if I hit OK, it will go out and search both places. Let me just minimize the mailbox results. This is all the content that we searched from Novell Vibe. I don't know who owns this. This is all public content from that site. And I can now do things with it like I could in email. So I can forward it as an attachment, for example. Right, and that will go and grab that content from Teaming, attach it to an email, and allow me to send it. So, any questions?
We did have one come through. It was, is it possible to single sign-on with Access Manager?
I'm going to say yes, but it's not set up here. So here it's stored my credentials, but the more recent versions of Vibe have got SAML authentication, and they should allow single sign-on. I haven't seen it necessarily. Here I've logged in previously and I got it to store my credentials, which is why it's not prompting me, but it wasn't necessarily single sign-on that was doing it. One of the next things I'm going to talk about is actually what's being facilitated here, and maybe I didn't talk about it on the home view, I was leaving it for later, but these are web panels. So we can view web content within our mailbox. And really the thing, as I get back to user productivity and all of those kind of things, organizational efficiency, a lot of what we interact with may be on the web. And this teaming site here, or Vibe site, is on the web, and we're pulling in web content here. But it may be things like your network health dashboard is a web tool, or in the case of the example I'll show you, I'm going to be using Twitter. Maybe you're in marketing and you need to monitor tweets about your organization so that you can respond. So we can embed content here right within our mailbox and get it to automatically refresh. So really the example is, why is that useful? It stops us jumping between applications. Often you'll find that as users are jumping between applications, they get that mental stutter that they forgot why they went to the place they just logged into, and they forgot that what they were doing when in the place they came from. So this really, again, puts that information right in front of the face. It helps them be more, more responsive. No need to have multiple screens, no need to keep switching to see what your workload looks like. It's all right there in front of you. Twitter, this UI isn't necessarily the best example, but if you use the mobile Twitter interface in this context, it's a much more, compacted view. But I guess you can look at any example that you want for content that you might want to display right there as a dashboard in your regular work view. The next one I have listed here is display settings, which is kind of a very generic term. but there's a lot of things that you can do with display settings, and most people don't ever touch them. You may have, many people will have this. Let me see, where's it gone? I'm missing what I'm wanting to say, but you'll have in GroupWise the panel that had the drop down for display settings, and people always leave it on, but nobody knew really what it did. It's actually very, very powerful and allows you to get a lot more insight into your mailbox. I'm just going to pop over to one of my folders right now. We'll do it here, and we'll look at our display settings. So you right-click any folder, you select Properties, and you get these display settings. And the default is this. That's probably how a lot of your organization still works, and that's fine. But it's not really helping them be more productive. As you look at how information is coming and how much information is coming in, anything that we can do to make it easier to do that triaging, the better. So I'm going to show you some things that can help us manage that. So first of all, I changed to View Summary, just because I don't necessarily need everything to know all of these columns, and I'll show you what that looks like immediately. So it kind of changes it to this view where the content's on 2 lines, but I get a lot more space. So my quick view now essentially is able to fill that, and I'm not losing much fidelity. Oh, we just want to turn quick view on. Okay, so I haven't really lost anything, but I did gain something. Next, the next thing that I use is I select Group Labels. And Group Labels, to show you what that does, essentially collects content together. So here this is, because we're sorting by date, we're able to collect, it groups them by date. If I was sorting by subject, these group labels would be the subject, or by sender, it would be the sender's name. But that just allows me to see how much I did not get done today, or how much I did get done today, and what's left from a couple of days ago. Next, and this is really the one that I find most useful, is the message preview. And this is the one that helps me drive really my ability to triage and manage quickly everything that's in my mailbox. So I'm select this, and what you'll see is it displays the first few lines from the mail, but from the message within the folder, within this content pane. So now I can see this one's not important, maybe it just says thanks, whatever it is. I know that I don't necessarily need to look at that. I can immediately delete it without spending a lot of time on that mail. The other thing that you're seeing, well, there's tasks. The other one that some people use, and I spoke about task list, but the other one that people use is turning a folder, this folder, into a task list. So we can select this, select Properties, and here on this View By drop-down, we can select Task List. This is how a lot of people like to use. So if you don't use the home view, but you do like tasks, and you like the idea of not having to switch around a lot, you can change the mailbox or any folder to include this section at the top that's a task list. And that allows me to drag content from my mailbox up into the task list, and it creates tasks up there. So that's really my to-do list. And the same functionality around being able to come in here into this section and start typing is there as well. And the ability to also create tasks and subtasks is also there. So that again helps you drive kind of what it is that you're doing, changing everyone else's priorities into yours, and do it within that one folder. So one of the things that I find myself using a lot is, or wanting to do a lot, I guess I should say, is finding information or finding emails that I know somebody sent to me. And there are ways to do that. So we can come in here and we can type in, maybe it's from, I don't know who's in here, Bob. I'm going to type Bob. And that does a search, and that's fine. But that isn't necessarily, for me, the most effective way of going about it. Because sometimes it's hard to limit the content I get, sometimes it's a bit too generic. So what I actually do is come and go into my contact list, and this is one of the most well-hidden things that Novell did, but it's for me one of the most useful, and I find myself using this multiple times a day. So here, on this tab, we get this history tab. And that shows me everything that I've had to do with Bob. If you recall, the search I did, and we'll go back and do that right now again. I came and typed Bob, because the default is from. I'm not necessarily getting all of the content that I have with Bob. So these are all bobsleds items, and what are there? There are 8. But here on the history tab, if I get back there, there are a significant number more, because that's also searching things I've sent to Bob. That's also things that I've received from somebody else, but Bob was included as a CC on. So it gives me a lot more content around Bob. And often the thing that I'm wanting to do is find attachments that Bob sent me. So often the next thing I do is on this find drop-down is select items with attachments, filters this list, and just gets me to the attachment that Bob sent me. So that's typically how I find content within my mailbox, or within Teaming. It can also search. So I've spoken a little bit about task lists, and you can see from this task list that we have items that have been marked complete. It's not, as time goes on, I don't want this completed section to just keep growing and growing and growing, because it becomes hard to find the wood for the trees in there. But often, because there's something I wanted to do, the items I want to keep, either to archive them later on, or keep them around for a little while so they're there for my reference. And so there's a couple of things within here that allow you to manage completed items. So here we can say, we can hide completed items immediately, which means as soon as I mark them complete, they disappear from this folder. They become kind of hidden items. The other thing that you can do is hide completed items after a day, which means that at the end of today, I can see that I've been very productive and I get a nice fuzzy feeling, but tomorrow they disappear. Again, they become hidden. I don't like the concept of those items becoming hidden, and the task list is not the place that I want necessarily to keep those things long term. I have a folder where I keep items that I want to keep for long term, so I want to file them there. So actually I ignore both of those two things, and I create a rule. Not there, I don't know. So we go to Tools, Rules, and I create a new rule that I call Completed Items. And I create on mails or tasks that have been marked complete. Oops. And I move it to a different folder. Maybe it's there. I'm going to move it to this customer folder. So that allows me to manage my task list as things get, as I mark things complete, they get automatically filed in a folder I'm going to keep for a while, and will archive. And then finally, and this is the one that won't necessarily work in this environment, the last one I want to talk about is RSS feeds. And so, in the context of having everything in my face that I need to get my job done, one of my needs is to get industry news, or is to, I guess, keep up with industry news. And yes, I can go to websites and read them, and that's all well and good. But what you'll often find within organizations is that once people are at a website, they lose a lot of time doing other stuff, and that's becoming more and more of a problem for organizations. And it's not necessarily that they can block it, because you want people to keep up with what's going on in the industry, but I found, because I recognize that behavior in myself as well, and I found that by using the RSS feeds within GroupWise, I was able to get content pushed to me instead of necessarily having to go out and pull that information, so it just appears. and I find myself browsing around a lot less. So I can see it coming up in my home view actually, and let's go and find an RSS feed. So anywhere that you see this icon, you can subscribe to RSS. We'll grab this one. And if I didn't do it already, I can select GroupWise as, it looks like someone's already done it on this computer. So you can register GroupWise as an RSS reader. And if, let me do that again. Oh, right here. So it's been registered. So we can register GroupWise as an RSS reader and then subscribe to feeds. And that will then pull content into GroupWise. I'm not going to click on the RSS folder right now because it's busy grabbing the content. But here you can see that it's created a new folder, GroupWise Feeds. And we have the registry. If I click on that now, all being well, this is all of the content from that feed with the content displayed on the right. And you can actually set this to download the entire page in Trust HTML. And if you're registering or subscribing to RSS that requires authentication, like Novell Vibe does, you can provide the login credentials here. And then, of course, I can create a panel within my home view that displays RSS right within this panel. So that takes me to time, unless there are any questions.
Looks like we have just a few. Let's see. And we may not have time for this, but and you can decide, Alex, if you want to do this. But there was just a question about the web interface for GroupWise 2012. If you're able to show that, I think there were some questions on that. The next one is, and this one actually, I will save this one for the next session. It has to do with Vibe. It's just possible to send short messages / emails inside of Vibe. So Thomas, you asked that question. We'll save that for the next session, which is the Vibe session. But the last one is any dangers in leaving Quick Viewer on, like opening a bad email before you realize it? Just wanted to, if you could address that a little bit.
So, other dangers, I guess. I've not necessarily come across a problem. Of course, you know, some attacks are getting very sophisticated. GroupWise does use Internet Explorer to display web content. You know, it's using the DLLs or web toolkit that's on the machine. So as long as that's able to detect, you know, phishing attacks or whatever else, it shouldn't necessarily be a huge problem. And leaving it open, it won't automatically highlight an email that you haven't meant it to highlight. So you have to click on something to get it to display the email. So it's no more dangerous necessarily than double-clicking something in a folder. It's using the same underlying technology to display. So that comes to end. I guess the one thing I will say, obviously, many of you will know BrainStorm. We have GroupWise content available, both GroupWise 8 and 2012, if that's where you're at right now. So we have our best-selling Quick Start cards available right now. So give us a call, and we can get those to you. We also have a product called Quick Help, which has GroupWise content, GroupWise 2012 content, GroupWise 8 content, video content this is, as well as obviously Microsoft Office content that you can display within the ribbon in Office applications. So it's a very rich set of content that you can purchase from BrainStorm, and if that's something you're interested in looking at as well, give us a call or look at our website